How's it going, guys? This is Casey with Flysnties Fly Company. It's been quite a while since I put out a full-length video. I've been doing some short clips on my Instagram, but I had a few requests for this specific pattern. I think mostly for the techniques of probably the biot body and the parachute post. So it's a pretty fairly easy tie. And it's a really great pattern and works really well, for the sulfurs and the PMDs. So yeah, let's get to it here. So we're using a straight eye dry fly hook. This is a Daiichi 1110, a size 16, and the thread we're going to use today is MFC 8/0 in yellow. So I'm just going to start my thread here, right behind the eye. I run in about halfway, and then our tail is going to be a pair of microfibbits. So your microfibbits come on a little, kind of like almost like a paintbrush deal. You can certainly use a paintbrush as well if you don't have microfibbits handy, or a fly shop nearby, but you're just going to use 2 microfibbits in dun color. So I like to put my tails up underneath my thread and make one wrap over top of them, and then just pull them to length, and you're looking for a length of about 1 full shank length. Okay, now you're going to wrap over top of these tails here, making sure to, like, whatever way that you do tie your fly, kind of counter that pressure of your thread by pushing the opposite direction. So now what I have here is, my tails are kind of stuck together. So you take your thumb, push up underneath the tails, and they'll split apart for you. Okay. Now there's a little bit of a trick. I'm actually going to run my thread back up here real quick and lash these 2 microfibbits down. And you want to come back up to about the 2/3 point of the hook itself. It'll be the 2/3 point from the back, of the 1/3 point from the front. Okay. So now I'm going to run my thread back, and this is the key to splitting these tails. So now what I'm going to do is, hopefully I can get this pictured on the camera, I'm actually going to come up underneath with my thread and come in between the 2. Okay. Now you don't want to yank really hard. Alright. And then just kind of come back up onto the body. And then come back again. And you're going to come underneath the 2 of them and pull. And this will keep your tail split for you. Alright. There we go. Okay, now we're going to put a small thread taper with our thread here on the body, and then return our thread to right in front of the tails. Also, another thing that you can do if you don't think that you got your tails the way you want them, the Soul Res Bone Dry is that really awesome UV resin that you can use and just kind of put a little drop in between the tails there, and just hit it with your light. This way you have a little bit more security if you don't think that you wrapped your tails in good enough, and that'll keep them split for you also. Okay, so that's another way that you can do it as well. Alright, so now we are going to attach our biot. This is a turkey biots in sulfur color from MFC. They come in a pair. Alright, so now one thing about this, there's a concave side to this turkey biot. Okay, so you're looking at the convex side, and then this is the concave side. It's probably hard to see on the camera. So you got kind of like a really fine edge, and then you've got more of a blunt edge. So the way that you wrap this, you want the blunt edge to be on the back side so you get that ribbing effect that stands up. Okay. One thing to do also, you might want to wet these a little bit before you start to tie with them. Sometimes they'll have a tendency to split if you don't. So we're just going to tie that in kind of like at a 45-degree angle on our fly here. So now I'm going to advance my thread up to that 1/3 mark on the hook. And I'm actually going to put a small little whip finish there. So now you can do this with your fingers or with your hackle pliers, and just kind of spin this forward. And as you make your wraps, you just kind of want to kind of watch for that little segmentation to kind of stand up, okay? And you're going to stop that at that 1/3 point. It's a great index point for this fly, and pretty much for any dry fly, really. You know, if you're going to tie in a parachute post or, you know, just a standard wing. Alright, so you're just going to tie that off really nice. And then clip that. Clean that up a bit with your thread. Now we have a nicely segmented body here. Okay. And the next thing we're going to attach is our widow's web. This is an MFC product as well. This is great stuff. This is in golden stone. This is my favorite parachute post material, or just wing material, period. It has it's been treated with a chemical to shed water, so that's kind of really nice. It doesn't have a tendency to hold water. So you're gonna cut up. I cut one full length off the hank, and when you cut a length of this, just remember the amount that you grab and tie in. It's going to be kind of double that, and I'll explain here why. So I'm going to stick this up underneath my thread here, just right in half, and make about 4 turns to secure this. And now this is why it's going to be double, because you're going to kind of stand this up straight. And I make a few wraps in front, a few wraps behind, and now you're just going to start to wind up the post. The key here is keeping tension with your material hand as you crawl up this widow's web. Alright. Slow and steady. It's a really easy technique. Like I said, just keep some tension as you start to wrap your thread up the post here. Just keep tension on it with your material hand. Alright, and then once you get up, I'd say about 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch. And then you want to come back down and make a couple wraps. This will actually stiffen your post up really well for you, okay? And that's pretty darn solid there. Alright. Now, we have to attach our hackle. This hackle is the Whiting's hackle, the 100 packs. This is a size 16, appropriately sized for our fly here. And this is grizzly pale yellow in color. Alright, so now the trick to a parachute post, what you want to do is you want to strip off a good portion of your hackles and reveal the stem. So when we tie this in, you're going to tie it in pretty much right on the side here. I'm going to spin my vise towards me. It's a lot easier for me to see this way. And I'll show you once I get it lashed in. So I'm going to tie it in right on the side there, first off. And I want to make sure my exposed hackle stem is as long as the parachute thread is high. So what I'm going to do is roll my thread over onto the post, and start to wrap up the post. Okay. Now, you can see, let me get this all situated here. So I'm not actually capturing any hackle as I'm wrapping up. All I want is stem on there, and that's kind of important. It'll make for a lot cleaner hackle post. Okay. So now once we have that, I'm just going to clip off this small little piece down here. Clean this up a little bit, and now we're ready for dubbing. So this is just a dispenser of superfine dubbing, and the color in this is the number, so superfine number 2. There's a number 1 and a number 2. They have some different colors in each, but this the color in the number 2 is the sulphur orange color for this pattern. So this stuff dubs really well, so just make a fine little dubbing noodle here. You don't gotta go too crazy with it. Less is more always with dubbing, you know. You just don't want it to build up and bulk up, especially on these, you know, nice little delicate dry flies. Okay, so I usually start in the front, kind of build up a little head on there, work my way towards the back, jump over the post, and I want to end my thread wrapping around the post. Okay, and this is an important step because we're actually going to whip finish off on the post. All right. So another thing to remember is the way that you wrap your hackle on your post, you want to make sure that you're whip finishing the same way. So if you wrap your hackle clockwise on the post, you're going to want to make sure that you are set up to wrap or to whip finish clockwise as well on the post. Okay. And then we're just going to start to wrap our hackle around the post here. Making nice kind of touching turns with your hackle. All right, and get that little fiber out of here. Okay, so we got that so far. So now, this is kind of one of those things. This is what I was talking about with making sure you're wrapping the same way that you're actually going to end up wrapping your hackle. So now you're going to take your thread. Let me see if I can get a better shot of this. So you're going to take your thread and kind of wind, and you're going to come over top. Make sure you hold the hackle in your fingers. Okay, over top of the hackle and then underneath the hackle. Now we're tied off. Okay, and I usually come around one more time and just let my thread hang off the back side here. Okay, now I'm going to trim this hackle off. All right, I'm going to cut my post to length, my wing post or my parachute post, whatever you want to call it. And now we're actually going to whip finish off on the base of the hackle, just kind of like we tied it off. take your time with it. Okay. Cinch that down, and then after you get your thread cut off, you may have trapped one or two fibers. You can go in and clean those up. Okay, let's see here. Okay, now we're pretty much done with our fly here. One thing I do like to do is come in with the bone dry and put a little bit of the Sulphur as bone dry on my whip finish wraps. This way I know my fly will not blow apart while fishing. And this stuff is really thin, it penetrates deep, and then you just cure it with the light and you're good to go. And that is it. That is your parachute Sulphur. Got a little straggler back here bothering me. Alright guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully it was a good learning experience. Sometimes dry flies can be intimidating, but once you tie a few of them, they're actually really easy. I love to tie dries. It's been a long time favorite of mine. I've been tying flies for about 14 years now, and I do tie a lot of nymphs. Just because nymphs are a way to go a lot of times. But when you get that magic moment when there's heads coming up all over the place and you've got the right dry flies in your box, it could be a really, really fantastic, unforgettable time, that's for sure. So tie a few of these up and give them a try. Now's the season. Thanks, guys.